Sorry, my main computer's down. We're going to the laptop. When people watch this show, they keep on getting down on me on one thing. Well, how can you call this an MMO show when all you do is cover World of Warcraft? I mean, there's more MMOs out there than that. Alright, I hear you guys. I completely understand that, and I agree with you. There's a lot of massive multiplayer online experiences to be had. So this week we're going to go off of the WoW circle, and I'm going to show you guys something that's a little controversial in nature. America's Army. Now, there is one thing I do need to say, so there's at least some level of transparency here, so you guys understand exactly where I'm coming from for the rest of this review. I hate first-person shooter games. You know, hate is not a strong enough word. Hang on, let me look a couple up here. Let me just go off of cherry-picking here. Loathing, despise, detest, abominate. There needs to be a German word to describe exactly what level of, under Dante's 9th level of hell, that I absolutely abhor this type of a genre. Abhor? I think I might have to go with that one.
But in order to really understand why I have a very big disdain for first-person shooters, we gotta do something a little more drastic. For example, you're taking a ride with me. Let's do this.
I've got 2 decades of experience under my belt doing this stuff in the real world, and I literally wrote the book on paintball, or co-authored it anyway. So I can say with some authority, I'm not a noob. We'll get back to the laser tag as we need to get there, but let's talk about video games. America's Army is a free first-person shooter that's put out by the United States Army. Yep, U.S. Army. In 2009, the game had cost the U.S. Army $32.8 million to produce and distribute. I couldn't find more recent numbers, but it seems to average about $3.5 million a year, so you do the math. The justification is that this is not a game. Many people view the game as a propaganda tool at worst and a sales pitch at best, and to that end, the game does glorify the Army lifestyle. The United States Army budgeted $544 million in 2011 on their recruitment budget, when you consider that they requested $143.4 billion for...
Whoa, is that right? 143 billion plus 102.2 billion for overseas operation was requested, so yeah, I guess that's right. Okay, I guess in that context, spending $3 million on a 24/7 recruiting station, that's chump change.
Fall into the starting position.
And that's really what this is. It's a recruitment tool. The idea is to put a positive spin on the Army lifestyle and make it attractive to young men. On one hand, this isn't a hidden agenda, but on the other, it's never really outright stated either. But when you go to the main AA website, it's pretty obvious what's going on. So, the game itself. It starts with making your soldier, and here's where the main audience aim is really hammered home. All possible character models are young males of varying ethnic diversity. I'm willing to forgive a lot in this, like the similarities of models. I found the choices of ethnicity and the percentages pretty interesting. Almost as interesting as the lack of ethnicity that I saw on the multiplayer maps when I finally got there.
But what gets me is that you never actually see yourself in-game. Once you're off of the main screen, that's it. The only time you actually see any parts of your anatomy is when you're shooting, and even then you're wearing full gloves with a full jacket that covers everything. So this isn't a choice that you're making for yourself. This is just a cosmetic mod that you're showing other people what you want them to perceive you to be.
From here, you can choose to dive right into multiplayer or go through training. They promise that going through the training will have benefits to the game, like unlocking specific weapons and upgrades, so not being a very heavy FPS player, I figured that training really wouldn't be all that bad.
Listen up. I'm Drill Sergeant Calero, and over the next 9 weeks, it's my job to turn you from civilians into soldiers, the most elite fighting force on the planet.
What follows is a lot of cinematics and a slow learning process. Well, how hard can this be? I mean, it's just a shooter game. I mean, the WASD keys should just be...
Cheat sheet.
Okay, so what do we got here? WASD for movement, you can use the arrow keys too. Okay, you got buttons for specific weapons and specific things to do with those weapons, interface stuff like scoreboards and communications keys. They have a HUA key.
I guess I gotta talk about this now. At this point, I can't ignore it anymore. Okay, well, the military loves doing things that really don't make sense to a lot of the civilian world, and one of the things they absolutely love are acronyms. They love them, to the point where I think they start making acronyms for their acronyms at this point. And sometimes I think that they even try to make full-blown words out of what was an acronym. So hua was kind of developed in that way. Now hua means basically anything but no. Think of it like Smurf, but not so Smurfy.
Shut the Smurf up. Yeah, right in the Smurfing parking lot? Smurf, yeah. Oh, that is freaking Smurf. Smurfing.
Yeah, HUA. Some people think that it was short for heard, understood, acknowledged, and it just turned into hua over the years. Or using the same letters, you could use it to just tell you that your CO has his head up his, I think I'm going to keep this family friendly. But make sure you don't confuse it with the Marines' oorah, the Navy and Air Force's hoo-yah, or the Ren Fair's huzzah. So we've got communications buttons and live voice chat. This does not bode well, but let's get back to the training.
All right, hero, get in position.
You probably get the world's friendliest drill sergeant to help coax you through the obstacle course, where you're supposed to learn all of the movement skills that you're going to need to play the game. I really had a hard time rationalizing the idea that I could traverse a left to right bend several feet in the air, but at ground level, not so much. They also let you retry it as many times as you want to qualify. I know in the real world you'll get chewed like old bubblegum if you don't do something right, but here it's a very gentle go get 'em, and this is what I racked this up as a tool, not a game.
I will admit that I might be being just a wee bit harsh here. I completely understand that. I mean, the military is tons different than the way it used to be. I mean, they get these guys running shoes now? Yeah, that never happened back in the day. Who knows, maybe at the end of the day, if everybody's got a really good lap on the competence course, they'll go out and have a pizza party.
Next bit of training is on the range, where you learn how to shoot a gun.
This will be a live fire exercise, so safety is paramount. I don't want to write your mamas and lie about how smart you were.
They do a decent job teaching you some of the basics of gun safety, only to have you break them with the supply specialist. What gets me is that this guy has a speaking role, but you never see him again, so I'm trying to figure out what purpose he fits into the game. Probably just to show that support roles are just as cool as being a frontline grunt.
Not everyone in the Army is a trigger jockey. What do you think happens when you're out in the field and you run out of ammo? That's where I come in. I make sure you have what you need before you need it.
What he says here is really important in that they really hammer home the hold your breath aspect for shooting for accuracy.
Just remember to hold your breath properly to hit those far
The
targets.
thing is that until you start shooting, they don't tell you how to do this.
It's spacebar. The cheat sheet actually doesn't list that, but it's spacebar.
They also cover other weapons as well. The M320 gave me no end of trouble. Even following the posted directions, I couldn't get it to work for me. Now, there's probably a key thing that I'm missing, but I've never used this weapon before in any context, and the instructions were lacking. You also get to qualify with a saw and some grenades, and again, they really don't show you how to do things like duck after you throw grenades until you damn near kill yourself. You go through some of the basic combat first aid training, which I found is a major component for the game mechanics. You see, most bullets don't kill you outright in this game, they simply incapacitate you. So you need your teammates to heal you up to get you back on the battlefield. It all leads to the live fire training course, and here's where some of the big problems really begin for me, and where my loathing of FPS games starts to come into play.
You have entered a take and hold objective. Stay in the area to secure this objective. Engage the enemies as they're spotted on your BFT.
Okay, here we see problem number one. It's the BFT, the radar HUD. The real world has no radar HUD. You go on your own wits and perceptions, but okay, it's a video game, I'll let that slide. Problem number two is the horse blinder. This becomes more pronounced in multiplayer, but in the real world, in a real style shootout, you're not living down the scope. You're looking everywhere. You're not moving with the gun up the entire time. That's just impractical. If all you're doing is looking ahead and living through the scope, you're gonna get smoked. The best analogy I've ever heard is having your head on a swivel. But in FPS games, you're wearing the horse blinders and moving in straight lines. You can't turn your head without moving your whole body, and oh yeah, to look at a teammate means you're pointing your gun directly at them. How polite. Some will say that's just part of the game. I say it's unsafe. They also introduce it to this idea of looking for Easter eggs, if you bother to look at the sign and read it, something that really just adds...
I don't know.
The final thing you can train for on your own is your MOS, which is just an acronym meaning your job. Well, why MOS? Because it's just cooler to say. I decided on the long shooter option of the squad designated marksman. The promise was that it would unlock a gun and a sight for the online matches. Once you complete that, you get this fairly interesting cinematic.
Survanian officials continue to deny rumors of mass killings. The U.S. president stated
UN officials have given the Survanian government 2 weeks to respond to demands of the security.
Okay, so we have an indeterminate enemy force in a vaguely foreign land, a nice way to skirt the real wars going on out there, but this is the lead-in for the rest of the gameplay.
Make no mistake that to the north lies a very determined army. But unfortunately for them, the world sent us to stop them.
Which leads me to the online matches. Now, you guys know all that training I just went through, all the hours that I just spent learning all the guns, learning how to shoot them, and how to hold your breath, and how to aim correctly, and all that other stuff that they said I would absolutely need to know in the field? Yeah, about that.
Yep, it's like every other FPS in the world with an agenda. Tactics? None, really. You either get killed point blank like every other shooter in the world, or from some insane distance from an angle that only a map master knows, or dare I even say it, hacked. And this is the nail in the coffin for me. After pounding a few of their maps for a few hours, it became painfully obvious that there are people who know every single glitch and inch of the map. They know every hidey hole and every small opening they can use to find that one lane to just smoke everybody. And that's just not fun. Oh, and your MOS? Yeah, I hope you like being a grenadier. In multiplayer, priority goes in order of who's played the longest, and there's only one marksman usually on the whole team, and it's taken up by the guy who's got more rank than a month-old skunk roadkill. So there's no point in training for that, just to get the upgrades. Plus, there's no tutorial on the game types, no explanation other than the one screen you might find if you tap a key wrong, and TeamSpeak, not many people are using it. Instead, they'd spam their talk keys, and if you're expected to know what's going on. And I'm not even going to talk about the fun that I had with the minimap.
There is one thing I did walk away from this game with, and that is I am not the target demographic of this game. I'm an old dude who does not like playing first-person shooter games. That was kind of hammered home to me right away, that this game was not for me. This game does have one demographic that is painfully obvious once you stand back and look at it. It's the teenager who loves playing first-person shooter game of the week.
The challenges you faced during training were difficult by design. Your drill sergeants pushed you further than you thought your limits would allow, but you never quit.
The game shows a very stylized version of the Army lifestyle, and they're using some pretty cute terms to work around parts of a soldier's job that are not politically correct. Stuff like saying neutralizing targets or securing enemies. But there's one detail that may go over most players' heads, and it's rather clever. When you're playing online, you're always on the American team fighting bad guys. This is a trick of the software, which makes all enemies bad guys and all friendlies American soldiers, no matter which side of the fight you're on. And this is the problem that many people have, the 1,500-pound elephant in the room, if you will. This has caused a lot of the controversy surrounding this game, people calling it propaganda, or in some cases, militainment.
But I'm a big boy. I can take a little controversy in my life. I guess what really got me in this is that they were promising that this was going to be an army simulation, teach you the core values of the military, but in reality, once you strip away all the window dressing, it's just your average first-person shooter game using the Unreal Engine. So I guess in a way it is kind of like all those recruiter promises that never really quite materialize, so I guess in a way it's kind of realistic. But, again, I am not the demographic for this game. It's obviously meant for someone who knows what they're doing, knows the FPS game in and out, and can be made interested in possibly joining the Army someday. Some of the more conspiracy theorist-minded people have claimed this is just a vehicle to make the Army cool and increase recruitment.
Children as young as 13 years old are participating in the virtual Army experience, which paints an inaccurate picture of war by glorifying it while sanitizing the real effects.
I like to hope the kids are smarter than that, but then I watch YouTube and they prove me wrong. But, if you guys are looking for some conspiracy theories, I got a good one for you. In years of economic recession, military recruitment actually rises. Internet, go!
You see me now, veteran of 1,000 psychic wars. I've been living on the edge so long, where the winds of limbo roar. And I'm young enough to look at, and far too old to see. All the scars are on the inside. I'm not sure that there's anything left to me.
Strangely, I don't feel better.